Mr. Dauphiné, can I have a sound check?
Yes, can you hear me well?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, I have 9 o'clock on my phone. Mr. Court Reporter, are we ready to begin?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go on the record. Good morning, everyone. Today is March 21st, 2024. This is the hearing for the second day of case 23-00353 UT. Hope everyone has had a chance to get some coffee this morning, some Mega Millions tickets, and we have probably a full day. Let's just review today's proposed order. We're going to start with NM Area's witness, Mr. Dauphiné, and then we will proceed to staff witnesses Sidler and Dashino for this morning. To the extent that we finish with all three witnesses ahead of 12 o'clock, we will adjourn at the conclusion of witness Dashino and then resume this afternoon at 1 o'clock for Parks and Zigich. Are there any, one extra person to admit. Are there any requests for changes to requested cross-examination times before we begin? Ms. Gould.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. So upon reviewing my cross-examination for staff, I am prepared to waive my cross-examination for Ms. Parks. I believe I reserved 30 minutes.
Okay. Is there any party, thank you. Is there any party then that wishes, that would be the only cross-examination time I have for witness Parks. Is there any party who wished to have cross-examination time? Hearing none. Mr. Borman, I am going to admit Staff Exhibit 3, which is the direct testimony of Mary Jane Parks, onto the record as parties have waived cross-examination.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Examiner.
And her presence will not be required this afternoon. So we will just have witness Zigich for this afternoon session, which helps timing-wise. So. And
then I also do not believe I'll need the full 90 minutes that I've requested for Mr. Zigich. I can probably do it in much less, but just to see how the cross-examination goes, I'll reduce the 90 minutes to 45. I don't even think I'll need that, but just, you never know what it comes up.
Okay. I appreciate that, but now that Zigich is our only afternoon witness, that should assist with this afternoon's timing. I'll review briefing and the schedule. I know we have dual deadlines from the commission's order for determination of these, so I'll review all that at the end of today's session with everyone. But I'll probably have full. I don't expect to curtail the normal briefing deadlines, but I'll just review all that with everyone at the end of today.
Mr. Hearing Examiner, Rick Alvidrez on behalf of PNM, I have a couple of preliminary matters.
Sure.
First, we noticed that PNM Exhibit 8, which was admitted into evidence, which is the rebuttal testimony of Nicholas Phillips, is actually missing an exhibit to it, and specifically it's missing exhibit PNM Exhibit NLP 6 rebuttal, which are selected pages from the direct and rebuttal testimonies of Mr. Phillips in case 21-00215 UT. This exhibit was also omitted in the original version that was pre-filed, but we would ask to be able to substitute a corrected PNM Exhibit 8 that includes PNM Exhibit NLP 6 rebuttal.
I'm gonna deviate from the request. What I would request, just so there's no confusion, is you submit the missing exhibit as PNM Exhibit 8A or 8.1. So we don't have any confusion to that. Is there any objection? I know we're doing this after the fact, after cross-examination time, but it wasn't brought up during cross-examination time. So is there any objection to PNM adding the missing exhibit from PNM Exhibit 8 onto the record?
I'm not going to object to that, Mr. Hearing Examiner.
Okay. With no objection, go ahead and put that into Dropbox. Like I said, just titling this as the missing exhibit from Exhibit 8 and label that PNM Exhibit 8.1. And PNM Exhibit 8.1 will be admitted onto the record.
Thank you very much, Mr. Examiner. We will do that promptly today. The other has to do with the order of cross-examination. I think the way the pre-hearing order is that PNM is to go first in each instance. And what we would ask, since PNM is the applicant in this case, is that our cross-examination be last with respect to the witnesses that are being presented this morning. We only have three staff witnesses that we're going to be cross-examining. But I think that in some ways may be more efficient. Will potentially cut down on the length of necessary cross-examination, but and we can also reassess whether we need to cross-examine at all once the other parties have had a chance, if you will.
Any objection, Mr. Borman?
I do not. From staff's perspective, it really doesn't matter.
Well, it's your witness. It's your witnesses. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't particularly care what order the cross-examination takes place in. I've found that usually the parties doing the cross-examining are more concerned about that.
Yeah, right. And Ms. Gould, any objection to that?
I'm not going to object, but I did kind of have in my mind that I would probably have to ask less questions if PNM went first because it is their application. But I'm happy to accommodate Mr. Alvidrez if he wants to go last.
Okay. So for today, then we'll do for witness Sidler, NM area, we'll go first, followed by PNM. The same for witness Dashino. And then for this afternoon, for Zigich, it'll be NM area, followed by ABCWUA, and then PNM. I will note Ms. Gould may request additional time, so I'll be fairly flexible. Mr. Harris.
Yes, you didn't ask me. I do object because for me, this changing the order of cross-examination. For me, this is a discovery process, and I would like to understand the questions that PNM has so that I can evaluate the questions that I will ask of the staff witness.
Okay, I understand. So what I'll do, PNM, before I make a ruling on that, do you have a response to that?
Well, I do. This, I think the rules specifically talk about examination and that the hearing is not the proper place to do discovery. In any case, that's my response. I ask, indulgence, and I, understand that Mr. Harris objects. We'd still stick with our request, however.
Okay. I'm gonna kind of split the baby then. There's only one witness at issue, which is Zigich this afternoon. So I'm gonna stick to the proposed order that was submitted by the parties for Mr. Zigich. So we will have PNM go first, NM area second, and then ABCWA as was delineated in the order. For this morning's witnesses, Sidler and Dashino, that's fine. PNM can go last. Is that acceptable with you?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And thank you to my colleagues for their consideration.
Okay. Anything else before we start receiving evidence today? Mr. Yar.
Mr. Mueller, I would like to respectfully request to be excused after the first break this morning. I understand the prohibitions and the admonition from the scheduling order.
Okay, that request is granted. Thank you, Mr. Yar.
Thank you.
All right, let's begin then. Ms. Gould, you may call your witness.
Good morning. This is Kelly Gould for New Mexico Affordable Reliable Energy Alliance, also known as NM Area, and I call Mr. Dauphiné to be sworn.
Mr. Dauphiné, would you raise your right hand? You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter of opinion should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Dauphiné, can you please introduce yourself and spell your name for the record?
I am James R. Dauphiné. Last name is spelled DAUPHINAIS.
Who are you employed by and what is your job title?
I'm employed by the firm of Brubaker and Associates, Inc., who are energy, economic, and regulatory consultants. I am a consultant in the field of public utility regulation, and I'm a managing principal at Brubaker and Associates, Inc.
And who are you providing testimony for today?
New Mexico Affordable Reliable Energy Alliance.
Are you aware, I'm going to skip ahead to NM Area Exhibit 3 just to get this on the record first. I don't believe I need the witness to accommodate this exhibit, so if I could just do it with the hearing examiner. This is NM Area Exhibit 3 is New Mexico Affordable Reliable Energy Alliance's first errata. If I could ask the hearing examiner to admit this, which would affect the two corrected exhibits that I will admit next.
Okay, request is for NM Area Exhibit 3 to be admitted onto the record. Any objection?
Oh, sir.
Hearing none, it is admitted.
Thank you. Mr. Dauphiné, you have in front of you what has been marked as NM Area Exhibit 1, titled The Corrected Direct Testimony and Exhibit of James R. Dauphiné on behalf of New Mexico Affordable Reliable Energy Alliance on March 1st, 2024. Is that correct?
Yes.
And this exhibit includes a correction set forth in NM Area's first errata. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is this an accurate copy of your testimony in this case?
Yes.
Was this document prepared by you or under your supervision?
Yes.
If the same questions were asked of you today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
And these answers are true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
I ask the hearing examiner to move into evidence NM Area Exhibit 1.
No objection.
Request is for NM Area Exhibit 1 to be admitted onto the record. Any objection?
No objection.
Hearing none, it is admitted.
Mr. Dauphiné, if you can now please turn to what has been marked as NM Area Exhibit 2, which is titled The Corrected Rebuttal Testimony of James R. Dauphiné on behalf of New Mexico Affordable Reliable Energy Alliance on March 11th, 2024. Do you have that?
Yes.
And this exhibit includes the corrections set forth in NM Area's first errata. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is this an accurate copy of your rebuttal testimony in this case?
Yes.
Was this document prepared by you or under your supervision?
Yes.
And if the same questions were asked of you today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
And these answers are true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
I ask the hearing examiner to move into evidence NM area exhibit 2.
Request is for NM area exhibit 2 to be admitted onto the record. Any objection? Hearing none, it is admitted.
Thank you. I pass the witness.
Okay, Mr. Borman, you have your 15 minutes here.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Dauphiné.
Good morning, Mr. Foreman.
Okay, you are testifying in this proceeding on behalf of New Mexico area, correct?
Correct.
And on page 1 of your direct testimony, you state that NM area represents large energy users operating in PNM service territory, correct?
Yes,
And your recommendations in this case are or should reflect the positions of the NM area membership. Is that a fair statement?
correct.
Do those positions include the position of Greater Kudu LLC?
My testimony is on behalf of NM area, but it does not include special participation by Greater Kudu. I had incorrect understanding when my testimony was originally drafted.
Okay, but the positions that you have taken in this case are identical to those when you were believed you were testifying on behalf of NM area with the special participation of Greater Kudu. Is that correct?
Yes, because the positions are generic for the large customers of that are make up NM area, regardless of whether that involves Greater Kudu or not.
Okay, so what you're saying is the NM area, I guess, membership outside of Greater Kudu has similar or identical interests as Greater Kudu.
For the subject matter, my testimony, yes.
Okay, thank you. Are you familiar with Mr. Wintermantle's rebuttal testimony in this case?
Yeah, I am, yes.
Okay, and were you listening yesterday when I asked Mr. Wintermantle about the testimony on page 9 of his rebuttal? And I can quote that if you want me to.
Yeah, I was not available to listen into the hearing yesterday, so.
Okay. Well, on page 9 of his rebuttal, he states that hourly loads and hourly renewable profiles were provided to all stakeholders through discovery. Consistent with past practice, PNM did not include this detail in its direct testimony, as this information is voluminous and not particularly useful without proper context within survey. Do you remember at least reading that testimony?
Yeah, so I believe you are referring to PNM Exhibit 4. Correct.
Don't remember what number his exhibit was, but I just know it's his rebuttal.
Yeah, PNM exhibit 4 is the correct one.
Okay.
And what's the page number again, Mr. Ford?
Page 9.
Page 9 of PNM Exhibit 4. I don't seem to be finding that
Well, let me
quotation
see.
you give in.
Let me pull it up and give you. Ba, 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 ba. Now. You know what? I think I might have identified the wrong witness. Let me open up. Ba, 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 ba. I apologize, Mr. Dauphiné. You know, I'm going to just move on because I'm not finding this in my the testimonies I have. So I'll just move on to my next question. Were you listening yesterday when the subject of PNM's 2025 LOLE was discussed? I believe between Commissioner Ellis and Mr. Phillips.
Again, I was not available to listen into the hearing yesterday.
Okay, so you're not aware of what the 2025 LOE was that was a subject of discussion?
I am not.
Do you have any idea what that 2025 LOE of PNM is?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
I have no questions of the witness. Any redirect, Ms. Gould?
No, thank you.
Okay, the witness is dismissed. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Examiner.
Okay, next we will have staff witness Sidler. Mr. Borman, do we need a minute to get Mr. Sidler in the room?
Well, I've messaged him. I don't know, I mean, he should be available. Actually, I'll see if I can text you.
All right, let's take a 5-minute break. Let's go off
Okay.
the record for 5 minutes and give the witness an opportunity to show. Yep,
Is he
he's
there?
in the waiting room now. Scratch that.
Okay.
Hello, I'm here.
Okay, Mr. Borman, call your first witness, please.
Staff calls Jack Sidler to the stand.
Mr. Sidler, would you please raise your right hand? You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give the matter now pending should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Sidler.
Good morning.
By whom are you employed and in what capacity?
The New Mexico Public Regulation Commission is their acting engineering bureau chief.
As part of your duties in that position, did you review the application by Public Service Company of New Mexico and the testimony and exhibits filed in this proceeding?
Yes, I did.
And based upon that review, did you prepare or participate in preparing testimony regarding that application?
I prepared testimony.
Okay, you should have a document marked as Staff Exhibit 1. Do you have that document?
Yes, I do.
Can you identify it?
It's the prepared direct testimony of Jack D. Sidler.
Was Staff Exhibit 1 prepared by you or under your supervision?
It was prepared by me.
Do you have any changes or corrections to Staff Exhibit 1?
No, I don't.
If I asked you today the same questions as they're set forth in Staff Exhibit 1, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
And are those answers true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, they are.
You adopt Staff Exhibit 1 as your sworn testimony in this matter.
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Examiner. At this time, I move admission of Staff Exhibit 1.
Okay, request is for Staff Exhibit 1 to be admitted onto the record. Any objection? Hearing none, it is admitted.
Thank you. Mr. Sidler is available for cross-examination.
Okay, and as we discussed earlier, Ms. Gould.
Hi, good morning. Hi, Mr. Sidler. How are you?
I'm fine. Good morning, Miss Gould.
My name is Kelly Gould. We know each other. I represent New Mexico Affordable Reliable Energy Alliance in this case. If you could just give me like a brief overview on the scope of your testimony in this case.
The scope of my testimony covered the CCN request for the Sandia Battery Energy Storage System by PNM.
Okay. And if you can't answer a question, like if it's beyond the scope of your testimony, just if you let me know which staff witness would be better to answer it, that would be helpful for me. So my understanding of your testimony and the other staff witnesses' testimony is that you are not recommending the commission approve the batteries that are proposed in this case. Is that accurate?
Well, I'm not recommending the CCN. I'm not addressing any of the other battery systems.
Okay, does your testimony have any recommendation as to what PNM should do for the capacity that they need if the commission does not approve the CCN?
Well, I believe that they should look into the generation they have available at this time and maybe perhaps run it in a different manner, extends the PPA or things like that to buy some time for longer duration storage to come on line in a better manner or for prices to drop a little.
When you say extend PPAs, are you referring to the Valencia PPA?
Basically, Valencia, yes.
Are you aware that during this time frame of this resource case, the Valencia PPA will be in full force and effect, and it doesn't expire until 2028?
Yes, I am in the time frame for this case. It is, and I believe that perhaps PNM could make other use of the Valencia PPA other than what they're already doing to provide some coverage.
Okay. Is it staff's position or your position that PNM, and if they do not acquire these batteries, that PNM should rely on market purchases to cover their load in the foreseeable future?
I haven't really investigated whether they would need market purchases. They may be able to run some of their existing plants a little bit more, or they may be able to use the PPA a little bit more. But if they had to do some market purchases, that might be a possibility.
Okay. You would agree, would you not, that it is in the public interest to have a reliable electric system?
Yes, I do.
Have you reviewed the rebuttal testimony of PNM witness, Mr. Phillips?
I did. It was awfully long.
Would you agree that not adding the CCN in this case would result in a less reliable system?
I can't agree to that, no, because I'm not in a position to be able to evaluate that stuff myself.
If you know, well, I know you would know for yourself, but have you or any other staff witnesses that you know of, have they been trained on CERVEM or the Encompass modeling?
No.
And so you personally did not run any models for this case?
No, I didn't.
If you would turn to page 10 and 11 of Mr. Phillips's rebuttal testimony.
Okay, let me find it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, how do I get there? I gotta find the Dropbox link. Hang on. Okay, page 10 and 11.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just read, I'm gonna start at page 10 and then I'll go over onto page 11. I'm at line 15. And it says, as shown in PNM exhibit NLP-1 rebuttal, absent any wholesale transactions to increase PNM's reserves, adding only the 100 megawatt solar PPA as proposed by staff would result in a system LOLE of 1.29, which equates to approximately 89 megawatts of reserves. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
In your opinion, is 89 megawatts of reserves an adequate amount of capacity for PNM to get through summer months?
I would not believe so, but that, I mean, I believe that that includes running their existing plants and their PPAs the way they are currently. If they can rely, if they can increase their generation time or the amount of purchases on the PPA, they may be able to increase that reserve amount. But I don't have a way to verify that myself.
But just if they're running full out, everything they have, and they only have 89 megawatts of reserves to make it through the summer, would that be concerning for you?
I don't see any place in Mr. Phillips's testimony where it says that everything's running full out.
Right, but in my hypothetical, I'm just curious if, in your expert opinion, if you believe if they're running full out in a hypothetical, if you believe 89 megawatts is adequate reserves.
If everything was running full out and they were utilizing the PPA to the full, I don't believe that 89 megawatts would be enough, assuming that they were running full out and they couldn't be increased.
Okay. And then what does, so I know that you don't have the capacity to run the models or anything like that, but what does an LOLE of 1.29 if that were an accurate number, what does that mean for the system to you?
That would mean that there was an increased risk of losing load.
So that there would be a risk of shedding load almost 1.3 days every year. Would that be an accurate statement?
That would be accurate.
Okay. And are you aware that PNM has struggled with resource adequacy in the summer months since the abandonment of San Juan Generating Station?
Yes, I am.
Are you aware that in docket 20-00182 that the commission ordered PNM to have biweekly resource adequacy calls, which was largely based on staff's recommendation?
Yes, I am.
And have you participated in PNM's biweekly resource adequacy calls?
When I've been able to.
So you generally are aware that PNM's resource adequacy is of concern to the commission. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Are you aware that in the heat wave of the summer of 2020, 6 balancing authorities were placed in emergency alert status where they were maybe having to shed load?
The heat wave of 2026?
2020, 6 balancing authorities were placed in emergency alert status.
I wasn't aware of the number of those, no.
Were you aware that there was extreme limit on resources in the heat wave of the summer of 2020?
I believe I was aware of it to the extent, no.
Okay. Were you aware that in the same heat wave, PNM had to pay in excess of $1,000 per megawatt hour for spot purchases on the market?
No.
That's all the cross I have. Thank you, Mr. Stigler. Great talking with you.
Okay, and PNM.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Examiner. Good morning, Mr. Sidler. I just have, I think, one question for you.
Okay, first, could I ask your name? You just show up as PNM attorney too.
My apologies. My name is Chris Atencio. I don't believe we met face to face.
I don't believe we have.
Um, okay, I'm looking at page 8 of your direct testimony. Do you have that available?
Okay, let me get back to that page. Page 8.
Yes.
Okay.
And starting at line 5, there's a line of question and answer. Can you describe just generally what that is about?
That's basically the section of statute dealing with battery energy storage systems.
Okay, and within that section of statute that you have listed there, is there a requirement that energy storage projects be installed directly in connection with a renewable energy project?
No, there's no specific requirement, but there are a number. Reduce the use of fossil fuels would be pertinent to that. Support diversification could be part of that. Reduce greenhouse gases would be at least 3 areas where I believe that, if the batteries are not installed in connection with renewable resources, that they could be charged by fossil fuel systems.
Okay, but you noted at the beginning of your answer, I think you said no explicit requirement. Is that correct?
There's no explicit requirement, no.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sidler. Mr. Hearing Examiner, that's all the question I have.
Okay, thank you. I do have a couple of questions for this witness. Mr. Sidler, I want to focus on pages 7 to 8 of your direct testimony. Let's start on page 7. You indicate that staff believes that the public would be better served by waiting for long-term storage options and prices to become available rather than installing more short-term storage that is still expensive. First, just for my knowledge, can you explain to me, you indicate that shorter duration batteries have a lower battery capital cost on $1 per kilowatt basis, but longer duration batteries have a lower battery capital cost on $1 per kilowatt hour basis. Can you, just for my personal knowledge, can you explain the difference there for me?
Well, kilowatt is power and kilowatt hour is energy. Longer duration, say an 8-hour battery would theoretically have double the energy storage of a 4-hour battery. So if you took the same cost, if you base it on kilowatt, the prices right now for short term would be cheaper. But if you base it on the larger amount of energy stored and the ability to serve load longer, the charge for the longer term storage would be less, because you're basing it across a greater amount of energy.
Okay. And does staff have any knowledge of when you say that we should wait for long-term storage and prices to become available? Does staff have any indication of when those resources are available, or is there a backup in supply right now for those? What period are we talking about waiting for?
I don't know that I had a specific period in mind. I mean, obviously it can't wait too long, but I believe that right now it's a little bit premature to just keep adding 4-hour storage.
And my concern is that this facility wouldn't be operational until May 2026. So would that, I mean, is that concerning to you to wait an additional time period? I mean, if we wait, do we miss the window to have something operational by summer of 2026 is my question.
Not if they can use existing resources such as their existing plants or more from their existing Valencia PPA. If they can ramp up some generation, they could possibly cover some of their needs for a couple, for those couple of years until the 2028 systems.
Okay. I mean, but the window for a new construction would pass, correct?
Correct. If they're saying that they do it now and it's going to be operational in 2026, I would assume if they started construction in 2026, it would be available in 2028.
And I just wanted some additional clarification on your response at the top of page 9. When you said the SSP can reduce costs to ratepayers only if its discharge time lasts longer than the load it is required to serve. Once again, this is for my knowledge. Now to me, if PNM has indicated to cover that LOLE, that they would have to typically cover that through the market. But we really don't know what those costs in 2026 would be in the market. Is that correct?
That's correct, but if the load, like, because this SSP can only serve load for 4 hours at full load. So if that load goes longer than 4 hours, they're still going to have to either use other plants or do market purchases to cover that.
But would you agree there is a potential risk for additional cost to ratepayers if they have to buy energy from the market in 2026 to cover LOLE?
It all depends on what the costs are in 2026.
I'm going to imagine that they're going to increase from 2024. Would that be accurate?
That would be accurate, but they're going to have to make purchases regardless if the load continues past this 4 hours.
Okay, understood. Okay, no further questions. Mr. Borman, redirect?
I do not have any redirect for Mr. Sidler.
Okay. With that concludes cross-examination. Witnesses excused. Thank you for your time this morning, Mr. Sidler.
Thank you. Have a great day.
And Mr. Borman, hold on, let me check. Oh yeah, we're good, doing good. Mr. Borman, call your next witness.
Staff calls Gabriella Dashino.
Ms. Daxton, would you please raise your right hand? You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give, the matter not pending, should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning, Ms. Dashino.
Good morning.
By whom are you employed and in what capacity?
The New Mexico Public Regulation Commission, and I'm the Accounting Bureau Chief in the Utility Division.
As part of your duties in that position, did you review the application by PNM and along with the testimony and exhibits filed in this case?
Yes, I did.
And based upon that review, did you prepare or participate in preparing testimony regarding that application?
Yes, I did.
You should have a document that has been marked as Staff Exhibit 2. Do you have that document?
Yes, I do.
Can you identify that document?
Yes, it's my prepared direct testimony filed on March 1st, 2024.
Was Staff Exhibit 2 prepared by you or under your supervision?
Yes, it was.
Do you have any changes or corrections to that testimony?
I do not.
If I asked you today the same questions as are set forth in Staff Exhibit 2, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
Are those answers true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, they are.
And did you adopt Staff Exhibit 2 as your sworn testimony in this case?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Hearing Examiner, I move admission of Staff Exhibit 2.
Okay, request is for staff exhibit 2 to be admitted onto the record. Any objection? Hearing none, it is admitted.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Examiner. Ms. Dashino is available for cross-examination.
Okay, and we will start with Ms. Gould.
Hi, good morning. My name is Kelly Gould. I represent PNM area. How are you doing this morning?
I'm well, thank you.
Sorry to talk over you. So I don't have many questions for you, but if it's outside of the scope of your testimony, if you could just let me know and maybe refer me to the staff witness that's better able to answer the question. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Can you just give me a brief overview of what the scope of your testimony?
Yes, my testimony was relating what staff is recommending in regards to this application, and also making some recommendations to the commission regarding costs associated with these projects
Okay.
in the application.
So on page 2, you state, I'm on line 15, and well, line 14 to 17 of your direct testimony, NMSA section 62-19-17C, which directs staff to represent the public interest in utility matters before the commission, presenting its understanding of how the commission should fulfill its responsibility to balance the public interest, consumer interest, and investor interest. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Would you agree that it is in the public interest to have a reliable electric system?
Absolutely.
Now, I don't know if you're the right witness for this, but I just wanted to get a little clarity on your testimony. I know Mr. Sidler gave his testimony before, but is it your position or any other member of staff that instead of approving the battery resources in this case, PNM should just rely on market purchases to cover the foreseeable future?
Okay, could you re-ask the question?
Sure, so my understanding of staff's testimony is that the commission should not approve any of PNM's batteries. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate.
Okay, so if PNM needs that capacity, what is staff's recommendation that PNM do?
I believe that's covered in the testimony of Darren Zigich.
So I should ask him that question?
I think Sidler gave some options as well, but that would be best answered by witness Zigich.
Okay. Have you or any of the other staff witnesses that you know been trained on CERVEM or Encompass modeling?
No.
And are you aware that PNM has struggled with resource adequacy since this abandonment of San Juan Generating Station?
Yes, I am aware of that.
And you are aware that the commission has ordered PNM to have biweekly resource adequacy calls?
Yes, I am aware of those calls.
Have you participated in those calls?
When I'm available, yes, I have.
So you know that it's been a general concern for over 2 years that PNM may or may not be able to meet its summer peak?
Yes.
Okay. Would you agree? Have you reviewed witness Phillips' rebuttal testimony?
Briefly, yes.
Would you agree that not adding additional capacity, not adding these batteries to PNM's system results in a less reliable electric system?
What I agreed to is, I reviewed the costs in this application, and that's what my testimony is based on. So I think that question is better poised by staff witness Zergich.
Staff witness who?
Darren Zergich.
Okay. So you reviewed the costs, not really the reliability portion.
Most of my testimony is based on the costs associated with the project.
Okay. Are you aware of the summer 2020 heat wave?
I don't recall the circumstances surrounding that.
Okay. Are you aware that in the summer of 2020, PNM had to pay in excess of $1,000 per megawatt hour for spot purchases on the market?
I heard you mention that to witness Sidler, yes.
But you don't know that that's the first time you heard about that?
That's the first time I can recall hearing about it, yes.
Okay. Are you aware that last summer PNM reached its highest load that it had ever, its highest energy demand that it had ever reached?
I believe I recall that being told in one of the resource meetings, but I couldn't give you the specifics of it.
So do you have any reason to believe that PNM's load requirements, its capacity requirements will not increase as the years go on?
I'm sorry, will not increase, their load requirements will not increase?
Like, do you think that it will continue to get more and more and more as we move
So
to
it will increase, is that the question?
Sorry.
It depends on the.
Do you have any reason, is it reasonable to say that PNM's load will continue to increase as we move to 2026?
It is.
Okay, and then on page 9 of your testimony, I'm on line 8. You said, has PNM experienced delays in obtaining resources? And you answer, yes, the company has experienced and continues to experience delays in obtaining certain resources.
Okay, I'm sorry, page 8, line 8?
Page 9, I'm
Page
sorry.
9, okay.
I should have given you a chance. I have it all here.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Let me know when you're there.
Okay. I'm there.
Okay. So do you see where I just read?
Yes.
Okay. So you are aware that PNM has been having issues getting resources into operation.
Right.
Are you at all concerned that in not approving these batteries, that will further exacerbate PNM's resource adequacy issues?
Well, I think that the issue here is more so that the application, which I did not testify to the denial of any of the projects other than stating that the other witnesses are going to cover that, but that there is options other than these batteries.
Okay, I'm sorry. So your answer, my question was about the delays. So you acknowledge that PNM has had delays in getting its resources, correct?
I acknowledge that, yes.
And would you acknowledge that these projects are taking longer than originally expected to get into operation?
I would agree with that as well.
Okay, so my question is, in denying these batteries, are you concerned that we're putting PNM in a position where they'll never be able to catch up?
I don't believe that would be the situation for PNM, but that concern will always be out there in any case.
Okay, thank you. Those are all the questions I have for you. I really appreciate your testimony today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, PNM.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Hearing Examiner. Good morning, Ms. Dashino. I'm Rick Alvidrez. I represent Public Service Company of New Mexico in this case. We've had a chance to be introduced to one another in the past. Good morning.
Good morning.
I do have a few questions. As I understand it, you're the Accounting Bureau Chief.
That's correct.
And in terms of your role in this case, I think Ms. Gould covered it. You are basically detailing staff's review and analysis of PNM's request for approval of its
Correct.
application in this case. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you kind of provide the big picture. Is that a fair understanding of what your testimony does?
Yes,
And then you make some recommendations. I think you characterize them as related to cost. Is that right?
that's correct.
And you also had indicated with regard to questions from Ms. Gould that staff believes its role in this case is to represent the public interest, correct?
That's correct.
And the public interest does include the provision of reliable electric service, does it not?
Yes, it does.
And in fact, you would agree that PNM as a regulated public utility has a duty to provide reliable electric service, would you not?
I would agree with that, yes.
Okay. And in this case, with the exception of the Quail Ranch PPA, it is staff's recommendation that all other resources proposed not be approved. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, did staff analyze the available alternative resources that PNM considered as part of the RFP that was conducted underlying this case?
That question would be better asked of staff witness Darren Zerger.
Okay, do you know?
I would ask him.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you review any of the alternatives that PNM considered as part of the RFP?
I did not.
And you understand that staff didn't recommend any alternative portfolio in place of the battery ESAs and the battery CCN proposed in this case?
That is correct.
You talked about, though, that staff had proposed options. I think you described options. Some other witnesses that staff had proposed. What are those options?
Well, I think one of the options was a wholesale market, and I understand that weighted against 20. So projects have been delayed, so there's no guarantee that these battery projects are not going to be delayed as well. So in the instance that they are delayed, you know, PNM is going to have to do what they're doing now with San Juan. They're going to have to make wholesale purchases. And so I guess I shouldn't say I didn't review, because I did go back and look at some filings from the resource adequacy case and updated through 2023, I believe the cost of purchase power was 136 million for replacement resources for San Juan. And looking at a context in cost, the customers are going to be on the hook possibly for that if there was a delay in these battery resources in that amount versus putting these resources into rates and paying $1 billion for 20 years. When I think, and this, like I said, would be a better question for Darren, you know, the costs down the line are close to $1 billion. And I can't remember, I believe Nick Phillips said it's 750, 730 reevaluated in his errata yesterday. Versus the $1 billion that came in with the application for the projects. But that's just one option that I could speak to, and I'm not saying it's the best option, and I'm not saying it's the only option, but it's an option I can speak to.
So your option is more market purchases. Is that what I'm understanding you to say?
I'm saying it is an option.
And what is the cost differential between what PNM is proposing versus your proposal for
I'm sorry, could you
continued
repeat
market
that?
purchases? I'm sorry?
Could you repeat that for me? It's a little loud in my background.
Yes, I'm sorry. What is the cost comparison between what PNM is proposing in this case, cost to customers, versus the option that you're talking about with continued market purchases?
Okay, well, I wouldn't say continued market purchases for 20 years. I'm just talking about the time frame that these resources are needing to be online by, which is 2026. So I'd have to look the revenue requirement. I can't say I did the exact analysis.
Okay, so you haven't done any analysis of cost comparison, is that correct? Of staff's option versus what PNM is proposing in this case?
I didn't compute that number.
Well, don't you think that's a very important consideration for the commission?
It is important, so
So it could,
I could do that for you right now if I take the 750 million minus 136, which is,
well, I'm not going to ask you to do it right now. You haven't done it to this point, right?
okay,
Is that correct?
well, that's correct. I didn't do that exact calculation.
And you understand that if staff's recommendations are accepted, that PNM's peak load reserve margin in 2026 will be only 3.8%?
I'm sorry.
Yes, if staff's recommendations are approved, PNM's reserve margin will be only 3.8%.
Okay, I think that's a better question asked for Darren.
Okay, that's not something that you're aware of?
No,
Well, let me ask a more general question, because you do talk about public interest. Do you think it is in the public interest for PNM to have a less than 4% reserve margin as it heads into the peak season in 2026?
I would think that would serve PNM to have the electricity needed to serve its customers.
Okay, but that doesn't answer my question. I asked a specific question about 4% reserve margin.
I didn't testify to the reserve margin at all, so I would have to do, I mean, if 4% is PNM's normal reserve margin and they were gonna go below that reserve margin, then I would say that it would not serve the public interest if it's below 4%.
Do you know what PNM's so-called normal reserve margin is?
I don't recall it right now.
Do you know what if there's a preferred reserve margin applicable to PNM?
Is it 15%? I'm just trying to recollect what I may have seen in the application. I don't recall.
You recommend, or staff recommends the approval of the Quail Ranch Solar PPA, is that correct?
Yes, that analysis was done by witness Mary Jane Parks.
And do you understand that the Quail Ranch Solar PPA is a hybrid project with the Quail Battery ESA?
Yes, it has been stated that it is.
Okay. And staff is recommending against the approval of the Quail Battery ESA, correct?
That's correct.
Did staff assess whether the developer of the Quail hybrid project was willing to proceed with just the solar PPA portion?
That would be better asked of Darren.
Okay, that's not something that you're aware of?
No,
I take it you also didn't assess what the impact to the cost might be to the solar PPA if that hybrid project is split apart?
I did not do that analysis.
But you are the staff witness that talks about costs in this case.
More so in the revenue requirement aspect rather than project costs. I guess I should clarify that.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Turning to page 7 of your direct testimony. And beginning at line 14, you discuss the investment tax credit that's applicable with respect to the Sandia Battery CCN. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And what is your understanding of the investment tax credit as applied to the Sandia Battery CCN?
Well, it's my understanding that if it's a self-built system by PNM, that they would receive the investment tax credit, which they are in turn going to return to customers in the form of a reduction of income tax expenses, as I understand how it's presented in the application.
And how much is the income tax credit?
What's the exact amount of it? I have 100 and let's see, 131 times 30%. I don't have the exact number. I have the calculation. I can pull it up.
So it's 30% of 131 million in rough numbers.
Yes.
And what is your understanding of PNM's proposal about how to account for that tax credit so that customers get the benefit of it?
They plan to amortize it over the first 5 years once it's in rate base to reduce the income tax expense of the customer.
And your recommendation is that if the CCN is approved, that the $131 million rate base be reduced by 30%. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you do any analysis of the comparative benefits to customers of PNM's proposal versus your proposal?
I did see the analysis that Monroy rebutted on that proposal, and he had a $1.1 million difference that he presented, and I did not go through the whole revenue requirement, and I would need more time to actually see the impacts if depreciation expense were to change on that reduction as well.
Well, my question was different than what you just answered. I said, did you do an analysis of the comparative benefits to customers?
I did not.
PNM's proposal.
When it's presented in the rate case, I would do so.
So you did not do any comparative analysis to
Other
back
than-
up your recommendation in this case. Is that right?
Other than to reduce the rate base by the 30% income tax credit.
So are you sticking with that recommendation?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So let's go to page 8 of your testimony.
Okay.
And beginning on line 3, you have some recommendations about the ESAs, correct? What would happen if they're abandoned before completion, right?
Yes.
And it's your recommendation that PNM be required to absorb all the risk of whether those projects are completed. Is that correct?
Yes, they would not be used and useful if they're abandoned before completion. So yes, that's my recommendation.
And that's regardless of whatever reason they might be abandoned, correct?
Yes.
So you talk about a couple of projects, the Rockmont Solar Storage, the Hickory Solar, and Hickory Energy Storage. You see those on line 5 and 6 of your testimony.
Yes.
And those are included among the proposed replacement resources for the San Juan Generating Station, correct?
That's correct.
And PNM, those resources were approved by the commission on the recommendation of parties other than PNM, correct?
That's correct.
And would you say that PNM should absorb the responsibility for things that might disrupt completion of the project, such as a pandemic? That should be borne by PNM.
I didn't state that in my testimony. I mean, I asked to state that here.
Well, my understanding was that you just testified that PNM should bear the risk no matter what happens, no matter what the circumstances.
If PNM isn't bearing the risk, then the consumer is bearing the risk. So there should be a balance there.
Okay.
Now,
In order to have that balance, don't you think you need to have facts specific? Let me finish my question.
okay.
In order to have that,
Hold on, before my court reporter gets angry. Let's not talk over each other. Ms. Dashino, allow him to do the question fully before we enter a response. Thank you.
let me re-ask my question. In order to have that balance, you commission and staff would need to know the facts leading up to why a project might have been abandoned, correct?
That would be correct.
And isn't the same true with respect to any wholesale market purchases that PNM might have to make as a result of delays or abandonment of these proposed projects?
if the projects were delayed and PNM had to make wholesale market purchases, yes, it would be true. But that's why these are just recommendations for the commission to consider.
Okay. And on that same page, page 8, you indicate that if PNM should abandon the shorter duration ESAs in favor of longer duration of 6 to 8 hours, that ratepayers should be held harmless of any costs associated with the transition to the longer duration alternative. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So do you have any indication that PNM would be abandoning these shorter duration ESAs in favor of longer duration ESAs?
Well, no, I do not.
And what if it were in customers' interest to abandon the 4-hour ESAs in favor of the longer ESAs? Why should PNM be required to bear that cost if it's in the interest of the customer to do so?
I would have to evaluate the interest you're referring to, financially, reliability, and if the customers are expected to pay 100% for the 4-year battery project and then pay 100% for longer term battery, if you're gonna abandon the 4-year batteries, I mean, that's a whole other evaluation that would have to be done in order to determine the customer benefit.
Okay, but I'm talking about a scenario where PNM can show, hey, there's a customer benefit. You know, we've got these 4-hour batteries, we're kind of locked in, but if we get out of the contract, pay a penalty, get out of the contract, and enter into this alternative, in the long term, it's going to be cheaper for customers. Shouldn't PNM be able to recoup its costs so they can harvest that benefit?
Hypothetically, in that situation, if PNM has provided the analysis that proves it's a net benefit to the customers to do so, then in that hypothetical situation, it would be evaluated and this recommendation would still be recommended, but maybe it would be adjusted or changed in a way.
I'm sorry, it would still be recommended, but it wouldn't be applied, or what do you say?
It's a recommendation for the commission to realize that, yes, there have been delays with some of PNM's projects, and the PNM gets their weighted average cost of capital. They're allowed to an opportunity to earn a return. And are the customers allowed that same opportunity? They are not. But what is a safeguard to ensure that customers aren't left holding the bag for the entire project is simply something that we're trying to establish. We're not saying this is going to happen and PNM must give customers back everything, but it's a recommendation for the commission. And it's something that staff believes should be in place.
Well, as it's written, doesn't it say, that, PNM, ratepayers shouldn't have to pay anything if that happens?
Staff recommends that any amount of wholesale market energy purchases that PNM incurs to offset missing ESA PPA energy contribution from these projects due to project abandonment or delay be either credit back to customers, which is a recommendation here, refund of demand charges that are in future rate cases, or disallowed from FPP-CAC recovery. And it's just a recommendation. It's a staff recommendation.
It's a recommendation that, as written, applies under any circumstance, right?
Like you mentioned, if it's a better benefit for the customer and PNM comes in and provides the analysis that's a net benefit, well, then obviously the commission's going to take this recommendation and sit with it and say it's not the right recommendation, hypothetically. It's all in how it's presented. This is prospectively looking at something. It's not stating that it's going to occur or not occur.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. You indicated that PNM on these, PNM would get its weighted average cost of capital but it would not get that type of rate making treatment in the context of a PPA, correct?
Right, it would get 100% recovery in a PPA,
Through the fuel clause, right?
correct.
Those are my questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Exam.
Okay, thank you. I only have one question, and you were touching on it, but I just want a little bit of clarification for my own knowledge here. Based on staff's recommendation that any amount of wholesale market energy purchases that PNM incurs to offset missing ESA PP energy contributions from these projects. Now, I mean, it's my understanding that PNM over the past couple of years, including this year, potentially we touched on, they will probably have to do wholesale market energy purchases. Right. So I'm having trouble understanding how we would be able to separate that out. What separates a normal market energy purchase that PNM has been incurring to date from an energy purchase to offset missing ESA PPA energy contributions? Can you just explain your understanding of that for me?
Yes, so my understanding of this is we're recommending for these specific projects, if the commission were to approve the application, prospectively tracking the cost for these projects, and if wholesale market purchases would have to be made for these resources as they've tracked for the San Juan replacement resources, and they have provided those costs in their resource adequacy filing.
Okay, but my understanding of what happens from what we heard from witness Phillips yesterday is that when they purchase energy, it's a chunk. It's not, hey, I need a certain amount. They have to purchase it in a chunk. So how would I differentiate what energy is applied strictly to offset missing ESA PPA from that chunk?
I think that would be a better question for PNM witness Phillips, because I'm not sure how they provide that differentiation for the San Juan replacement resources.
Okay, thank you.
They are able to provide it.
Okay, that's my only question. Mr. Borman, redirect.
I don't have any redirect for Ms. Dashino.
Okay, with that being said, witness is dismissed. Ms. Dashino, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Okay, I have 10:17 on my phone, and we are finished with the morning witnesses. So when we resume at 1 o'clock, it will only be staff witness Zigich. So we all get a nice middle break to our day. Due to the amount of time, I am actually going to close the window instead of keeping it open. So I'll open it like at 12:45 so that everyone can link back in. Yeah, I think that's better than keeping the window open. Mr. Lee, any questions from this morning?
No, sir.
All right. We will adjourn until 1 o'clock. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.